All right, welcome everybody to our new episode. This episode we're exploring living divinely. To self-consciously be the science, the discernment of spiritual facts, does not entail a process of thought watching or verbalizing. It really means to take no thought, to do no verbalizing. The treatment that you be as the acknowledgement of good in all ways, not the treatment that you give, is the only treatment worth a fee. So live in yourself divinely. You live all of your living as yourself. Truth functions in the withinness of consciousness as inspiration and intuition, and by its own power and law. Thinking is not taking thought about, but being thought. Thinking or conscious identity is the cognitive reality, man, that constitutes existence. Enlightenment understanding is the seeing seen, the hearing heard, the feeling felt, which stands porter at the door of thought. Therefore, before deciding that what you observe sensorily is good or bad, right or wrong, true or false, sick or well, look deeply into your own withinness, your own self-unfolding divineness. In this insightful look, you will find that your own mind, God, self is the good and right, observable as good and evil, right and wrong, true and false, sick and well. Love is the awareness informing you in the language of your discernment that the concept of man as material personality is not man, and that the error of mistaking the concept for mind, man, is the sin, sickness, and death. And all of that is taken from Margaret Laird's book, Government is Self-Government, on page 111.
Yeah.
Welcome, Betty. How are you?
Really fine.
Anything else you would like to say to kind of set this up?
Yeah, she wrote also in Government is Self-Government, each individual is wholly responsible for his self and the world he is being.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
So
what we're working on here.
Yep. All right. So anything else you want to add and set up before we dive into things?
Well,
All right. Very cool. Well, I will go back and I will say that all of what we do with this channel is sponsored by the Institute of Metaphysical Science. It's a nonprofit charitable trust established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. Our website is scientificmetaphysics.org. If you would like to donate, you can certainly do that. Tax deductible here in the United States. All right, so let's dive in. So in Government is Self-Government on page 111, Margaret Laird wrote, thinking is being.
you got to read the note that goes with it.
Okay. My own divinity or godhood, my own thinking, myself, conscious identity is the one and only man.
Yeah, that's man thinking. Thinking is being, my being, your being, all being. Yeah.
Okay. And if you have any questions or want any clarification, you just type it into the comments and we will include it in the live session while we're live. And otherwise we'll answer your comments or questions. All right. In Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy put it this way. On page 225, line 21, love is the liberator.
And read the note that goes with it.
New forms of tyranny must be rooted out through the action of the divine mind.
Yeah. Love is the liberator. And when you're conscious that you live and move and have being in the atmosphere of love divine, it takes care of the whole thing. You know, wherever I go, the atmosphere goes with me. I am the atmosphere I walk through.
Mm-hmm.
So if you experience that you're not comfortable or you don't like it or whatever, you'd like to improve it or change it, give it up. What you're being is what you're seeing, and vice versa. What you're seeing is what you're being. Yeah. One thing going on.
So change my being. No, not change my being, just acknowledge being.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Very good. All right. And in Mind is the Athlete, your book, on page 135, you wrote, mind consciousness, self-constituting and self-maintaining, sees only itself as evidence of its own presence.
Yep. If I were not consciously present, I wouldn't have any evidence around me.
Right.
Nothing would be aware. There has to be being present, acknowledging itself for awareness to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One consciousness, being itself, is the reflective consciousness showing up in and as a language called humanity.
It's what we were just talking about, how well said that is.
Yeah.
Mrs. Eddy.
And in Government is Self-Government on page 112, Margaret Laird said, only by losing ourself as material personality can we find ourselves to be the conscious infinitude of existence, the mind of all that lives or seems to live.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we come by self-responsibility. All that mind is or seems to be is present when I'm present. Yeah. And without me present, none of it is being. So I am the world I walk through. Yeah.
The personality is constantly under the pressure of truth to fulfill its divinity, to preserve itself instead of suiciding.
Yep.
What does that mean?
That means you're taking care of yourself every step of the way. Otherwise, you fall in the hole.
Okay. I guess to preserve itself instead of suiciding. I'm not exactly sure what's meant there.
Well, I'm enlivening my experience instead of killing it off.
Okay. Okay. And I guess under the pressure, constantly under pressure of truth to fulfill its divinity, it'll look however it needs to look.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean it's all lovely or anything else. The circumstances, the look will be whatever it is. And we're constantly under pressure to fulfill divinity, to acknowledge truth. Is that kind of what that's saying there?
Well, the personality doesn't exist, so I don't really buy that it can do anything about anything. It's a point of view, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that you can do anything about anything, but acknowledgement tends to be a pretty powerful clarifier.
That's the whole picture, acknowledgement.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I acknowledge is what I'm being. I can't acknowledge something that I don't experience. Do you know? I
Right.
can't acknowledge something that's happening in Podunk that I've never been to, so to speak. I can
Well,
acknowledge my own being.
well, facts. You can acknowledge principle functioning. You can acknowledge the facts of being.
Exactly.
That's immaterial to location or the physical world.
Right.
So podunk has
Also
no
acknowledge
bearing.
I'm eating a peanut butter sandwich.
Right.
I
Right.
have to be living the experience to acknowledge it.
Yes.
Okay.
And it may or may not fit your pictures on the human belief level.
Right. And the responsibility is where?
Right. Well, with my being, whom I
With
be.
me. With
Yeah.
me. I'm self-responsible.
Yeah. But the me isn't me, Betty. The me that you're speaking about is me consciously aware.
Yeah. And in my experience, it will show up looking like Betty doing what needed to
What
be
Betty
done.
does. Right. Okay. Got it. All right, cool. If you guys aren't clear on this, you should type a question.
Yeah, Kim does it all the time, so you jump in anytime.
All right. In Science and Health, page 245, line 21, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, years had not made her old, because she had taken no cognizance of passing time, nor thought of herself as growing old.
Yeah, and she's talking about a young woman. But I just thought that was a good sentence in Science and Health to point up what we're talking about. You know, here Mrs. Eddy had the observable experience, I guess I can call it, of a young woman who didn't have any experience of aging because she was so living one moment and staying with it. She never changed. Really
Right.
interesting.
And yeah, I guess, I mean,
You know, we don't realize that we think the place where we would be, so to speak. You know, she talks about, Mrs. Laird talks about a man that was, I guess he was in an assisted living condition of some kind. And he had been there for a while. He was there because he was disturbed
right.
and he couldn't handle it at home. But anyway, at one point there was a woman that came along and she was talking in one of their sessions about her experience of living. And he said, "What a ridiculous way to think. Can you imagine?" And all of a sudden he says, "It's the way I've been thinking." And he left that place and went home just fine about a week later. He suddenly realized that he had captivated himself with the belief that he had about where he was and what was going on. When he
Yeah.
freed up, when he realized that he'd been thinking just like that woman was thinking, he could understand why she was in the problem. She was
Right.
making it as she went, which we all do.
Yes.
And he could say, "Oh, for God's sakes."
Yeah.
And he was free.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that we limit our own being or our own experience by the beliefs that we hold and by what we buy into.
Well, we think the circumstances make us feel that way.
Right.
We don't recognize that we do it to ourselves.
Right. Yeah. We're a victim to the circumstance. We don't,
Victim to what we're having it mean.
right.
We're a victim to our perception.
Yeah. I mean, a good example of this is when you're at work and you're working, but you're leaving on vacation the next day. How are you at work right then? And then you're on
Pack
vacation.
in the suitcase.
Right. But then you're on vacation and you go home the next day and we'll be back at work. How are you that last day of vacation? It's not, it's given by a lot we give to our circumstances rather than generate our own reality. It's just a fun thing to play with.
We don't know how to be here now.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
Right. Sometimes. The bodily results of her belief was that she was young, manifested the influence of such a belief.
Yep.
And Mind is the Athlete on page 135, you wrote, consciousness, self-identified, shows up in form or language.
Yep.
Forms or language disappear, returning us full circle to cause. So that's the right now nature of infinity, right? Right now, right now, right now, right now, showing up, appearing, disappearing. And is it that it appears to us on the personal belief level is that there's continuity.
Well, we think we're in a time zone, you know.
Right. Right. You know what I learned? You know what's interesting is I had around me at the time, this is a while back, about a 5-year-old who was just in preschool heading into kindergarten. And we had a parent teacher meeting and I got to go. And what was very, very interesting is that in kindergarten, they learn how to tell time. So in kindergarten is where we learn present, past, and future so that we can tell time. And what I had noticed is here was this little guy, and when it was his birthday, he was like, "It's my birthday today." And he would say that for like a week. And I was like, oh my God, because he didn't have the concept of not being present right now. And so I kind of laughed about it. Right. He didn't know that. So I kind of laugh about it laughed about it because I thought, man, we spend a lot of our adult life just working to be present.
Keeping up with ourselves.
Right. Out of all of that. But anyways, that it just was fascinating to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Our,
So go ahead.
our kids teach us a lot.
Right. All consciousness is mind God. And that's page 112 of Government is Self-Government.
Yeah, and read the note that goes with it.
Yep. As conscious identity, we have the capacity to love, to make new personal identity no longer subject to the cycle of success and failure, ups and downs, life and death.
Yep. As conscious identity, we have that capacity. We
Right.
don't always exercise it.
Right.
We sometimes become a slave to it.
Yeah.
It sometimes runs us. I'm behind, I'm behind, I'm behind. I'll never catch up. I'll never get it done. Oh dear, oh dear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. In Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy wrote on 245 lines 27, impossibilities never occur.
Yeah, they don't.
Because they're
You
impossible.
don't have to worry about them at all.
Right. They're impossible.
Yeah.
But the things we think are impossible are not impossibilities.
But for you, they are.
Right.
Well, actually, probably there aren't any impossibilities. But for the individual, it's whatever they say. If
Okay.
you say so, yep.
All right. Yeah. From your ear to God's, from your mouth to God's ear, 6 inches. Is that the?
You are the world you walk through.
That's right. So she could not age while believing herself young, for the mental state governed the physical.
Yeah, the mental does govern.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I give it all the power it's got. It comes to me for life, and I'm the one responsible.
Yeah, giving it all the life that it will have.
That's right.
And in Mind as the Athlete, on page 134, you wrote, the language world exists only as an ever-shifting view of reality consciousness.
Yeah, you got to remember that nothing is going on if there's no reality present.
Right.
And whenever anything is going on, there is a reality present. And Margaret used to say, so pay attention to your seeing. Because what I see is what I'm be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Perception is reception.
Yep.
Thing. Yep.
Students find value in speaking in such a way that what exists is clear and not distorted.
Yep.
So say more about that.
I don't have anything more to say about that.
Students, so metaphysical science students of science find value in speaking in such a way that what exists is clear and not distorted.
Yep.
Give me an example.
All is infinite mind.
Okay. So do you advocate for somebody facing a problem in regular, say they're in the library and something happened and all of that and la 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 la, and they say, all is infinite mind. You, I mean, I'm looking at this like I can find value and I'll speak to be heard. I won't be necessarily doing that. So you can find value in speaking in such a way that what exists is clear and not distorted. But you also got to speak to be heard of your world.
Well, if you came in the door and I said the world's going to hell in a handbasket,
right?
You'd say, what? What do you mean? What does that mean? What are you saying?
No, what I would say is I would look at you and I would say, all is infinite mind, infinitely manifesting. Because I could say that to you.
That's why I have you around, Kim.
All right. See, that's what I'm saying.
You in my world, you bet.
But I'm just saying that if I was somewhere else and all of that, I may or may not say that. That's all I'm saying.
But you would say, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
In order to see it more clearly.
Yeah.
in order to not distort what's going on into a belief system.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So, what are the closing thoughts on living divinely that you would like to say here?
Well, the thing that occurred to me is that divine living is what's present.
Hmm.
The experience of that is up to you.
Yeah.
It's equally present for everyone all the time.
Right.
How I live it is always up to me, and I can live it divinely at any moment. It doesn't require a process. I don't have to go back and undo anything. I have to be myself, period. When I'm being myself, my world is just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, that's all we have for today, y'all. So we will see you again next week at 5 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Central. So until then, look at your seeing, and we'll see you then.
Thank you.